Call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Excuse me, John. Ellen, did you set me up so I could record?
I thought I did.
Okay, I couldn't tell if it was me or for you that was recording.
Well, I'm recording, but it also says remove permission to record local files. So I'm assuming that means you're allowed to.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, John.
All right. Roll call. Maisha Cole.
Present.
Lorraine Humes. She's not on yet. Jason Lindsay.
I am here.
Sally DeWitt.
Here.
John Anderson. Joseph Camacho. All right, so we have 4 present, with 1 hopefully on the way. So at this point in time, approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion on the consent calendar? We just have 1 item. If not, we'll move to public comment.
Fine.
You're fine, Don?
I am now. I had trouble finding the hand.
Okay. Any others? Oh, Don, I see Don now.
Thank you. Yeah, I may be alone in my thinking, but when I see an agenda packet, what I expect to see is a standalone document. That is, everything I would need would be included in that packet. I wouldn't need to go elsewhere to view a part of the packet. And a case in point of how this would be beneficial is under item H.C.I of this packet, where if we want to review the draft annual report, we're required to go to a different website, type in the URL, and then open the document in order to review it. As is, had the draft annual report been a part of this packet, then it would only be a matter of scrolling to the appropriate page to review it. Another reason why the packet should be a standalone document is that if any of us wanted to archive the agenda packet, we would have to go through the extra steps described earlier and then combine the draft annual report with this agenda packet so we could save the total packet on our hard drives. When you have the packet split into multiple parts accessed on different websites, then when the weakest link becomes broken, the value of the packet is diminished. How many times have we complained because our own CBOC items archived on our website have dead links or are drafts instead of finals? Of what value are they to us when they're incomplete? The agenda packet is only a part of the whole packet. I said the agenda packet is only part of never mind. This is much the same as the board's packets, where there are actually several dozen chapters. And if a staff member or a board member or a member of the public wanted to archive the packet, they have to spend an hour or more to gather the parts and then combine them. Our CBOC packets used to be like that when the packets were put together by staff. Yes, it was simple and easy, but there's no way anyone would confuse those packets as coming from a group promoting transparency. Thank you.
Are there any other? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Which is the bond program status and financial reports.
Yeah, tonight, Ms. Mejia is going to give us the update.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here again. It's like, it was just a couple weeks ago we were here. But here we are, October 11th. And as far as the update on the projects, in the planning section, you'll see that we have 2 additional line items here for the Kennedy Richmond, and they've changed to site investigation. That is because on October 6th, the board approved the architectural contract to be able to hire 2 different architects to perform the site-specific master planning services. So we're super excited to get that kicked off. It will be quite the process within the next couple of months, hopefully ending sometime in March-ish. But more to come as we get them on board and the process begun. In the design section, Collins and Cameron are in design, moving quickly into construction documents and hoping to be into DSA in the December time period. Hercules High School Science Lab, we had one round with the science teachers to go over kind of cabinetry layouts and classroom lab layouts. The architects went back. We're going to have those come back to the science teachers here soon. So some of the interior details are being worked out. Shannon NPR is going along with the bid alternate work for the kitchen. So we'll see how that kind of comes out as the budget develops. Riverside site improvements is in design with the architect. We're trying to get that also completed and into DSA in the December time period so that we can hit the summer construction schedule. Korematsu fall protection is currently with the architect and waiting the submission to DSA again. E-rates waiting on funding. For our design build projects, we have Lake coming along. We're settling the building footprints, getting the last revisions to the interior wall layouts so that we can have that finalized so that the systems and other pieces can be overlaid. And on Riverside soil stabilization, we've completed the hookups to the utilities for the trash enclosure. And now we have the footings waiting for some approvals before they can be poured. Construction, we have Pinole Valley field restoration that's moving along, and we have quite a few pictures of that later. So I'll leave the update until we get to them. Are we stopping there for questions?
Yeah, I think we can stop at points like this. Any questions?
Looks like Don has his hand up.
Go ahead, Don.
Thank you very much. You know, I spent 51 years building oil refineries. These tended to catch on fire or spit nasty things in the atmosphere or around us. When we said that safety is number one, we really meant it. It was critical to our own lives. And I see this so much in our own science labs, whether we're talking about the Hercules Middle High School science lab that's being rebuilt or the new Kennedy High School and Richmond High School. I'll bring it up right now as a precursor. Because I've seen just too many of our science labs that we have built that did not take safety as seriously as it should. In particular, we're talking about emergency eye wash stations and emergency shower stations. The shower stations in particular, I've seen just school after school after school where they have a shared, you have 2 science labs and they'll have a shared storeroom between them. And they'll put that single emergency safety shower in that shared room and then lock the doors to keep the kids out. Okay. I've seen emergency eye wash stations where you've had a half a ton of material stacked in front of it, you know, by the instructors or others. You need to make sure you've got the yellow lines on the ground specifying that nothing can be stored within 3 feet of these items. You need to think in terms of what if it was your child that got something acid spilled in their eyes or caught their hair on fire. You really want to have to go out and find somebody that's got a key to that room, or you want to find, but how many students to see if they can move that equipment out of the way or the store stuff out of the way. And also I've seen too many lab tables where the electrical outlets, the electrical boxes are put on top of the tables, right next to the sinks. Doesn't make sense. You don't have liquids and electrical items at the same place. I said, we've complained about it and they said, well, no, we did it at this school, we did it at that school, and nobody complained. I said, yes, we did complain, but nobody was listening. So I just hope that this time around, maybe we'll pay more attention to safety for the students and the instructors. Thank you.
All right, next slide. So talking about the site-specific master planning process, this was presented to the board as well. But the process really begins with the data gathering and site investigation. We need to make sure that everybody understands the current state of the buildings and what underground information we have, as well as the soils, which I'll combine together to give us that existing conditions picture, which all relates to how we can phase things, how we can justify keeping a building or not. And then the school space program really tells you what you want to have. So the investigation of the interior of the site tells you what's there. The school space program and goals tells you what you would like to have. And you bring the two of them together to find out what the best recommendations can be, which is how you develop the options. And along with the rough order magnitude costs to be able to bring those forward to make the decision into the final recommendation. So this is the process we'll be rolling through, like I said, until about March. And so we look forward to seeing how it develops for both the campuses. For Lake Elementary School, we have, oh, maybe.
Well, we have a question.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Just a really quick question. This all sounds good. How about trends, student and growth trends and things of that sort?
Yes, so
where
the
does
school
that
space,
fit into it?
the school space program will also talk about capacity. So that will be where we look at student demographics and determine how many classrooms are needed on site, and as well as which types of classrooms are needed on site. So we'll talk about CTE programs there, and the other specialty spaces like the arts and PE and such. And I just one moment, if the sun's going down and my lights are apparently off. So. Okay, here we go, back and in the light, or now I look dark, but anyways, it's a good try. Lake Elementary School, we are coming forward to another community meeting. So we have one planned for October 26th. It's going to be at 5:30 over Zoom to go through a few more components of the concepts, the conceptual design. So we look forward to additional input on that. We are also doing focus group meetings with the various teaching staffs to get into the details of the classroom and other space designs. Next one, Riverside. So the main portion of this, the soils, is of course completed. The paving has been done on a courtyard area that used to house an underused play structure. Now this is going to become a much larger outdoor lunch area because the previous lunch area was too small to be able to accommodate the size needed for the school. So next slide. There was also, as I said earlier, the utility hookup. So we went into the street and connected to the sewer line, which was quite a process. There are a lot of utilities that are running through there, and luckily we did not hit any of them, which made me particularly happy and slept a lot better at night because of it. So we are successfully hooked into the sewer system. Those plates are back over and the trench is filled, and the final paving will be done when there's additional paving work completed. And I think we got another hand, Sally.
Well, I'll just confirm that all that you're showing us right now has been incorporated into the facility master plan, right?
Sorry. Oh, I knew that was coming. Anyways.
So tight.
Thank you. So Riverside Lake was the rebuild project identified in the 2016 facility master plan. Or Riverside was the critical needs project that was identified in the 2016 master plan. Pinole Valley is actually a legacy project, so that was previous to the facility master plan. The Kennedy and Richmond site plans are actually part of the facility master plan update.
Okay.
So when we went to the board with the results of the prioritization committee, findings, recommendations, the board directed us to move forward with understanding Kennedy, Richmond, and Steech. And so that is what we're doing with those. So they're technically not written into the facilities master plan as of yet, although as soon as we get through the site master plans, we will have an understanding of what the budget will look like, which will allow us to incorporate that into the update process, just like the HVAC study that's also being completed.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thanks.
Okay. Pinole Valley High Fields, Fieldhouse, and Press Box. These things are moving along. So if you'll notice in the lower left, the portables that were used for restroom and ticket booth and snack bar have been demolished. The bleachers in this photo are half gone. As of today, they're all the way gone. On the right side, that's the area that's going to become the baseball softball complex. We are getting down to subgrade there. There was a lot of 3-inch minus rocks. So we had some additional process in getting to subgrade, but the work's coming along. Next slide. Oh, and then onto the construction newsletters. So we did put one together for Lake as a design phase construction newsletter. As I said before, the community meeting's coming on the 26th. The Zoom will be available on the Lake website, the Lake facility page website. We'll also do additional advertising on various social medias, as well as the district website and to the school community itself. The next slide is Riverside. And so this shows the other side of the paving area is the old concrete shelter or concrete eating area that is now ADA compliant, which it wasn't before. And it also expanded a little bit. So that's really a nice area now that can be used for outdoor learning. There was also work done in the parking lot, which is shown on the lower picture to connect the water over to our new trash enclosure. So there's the Riverside and Pinole. The top photo is showing the process of doing the line treatment for the upper plateau where the basketball tennis courts are going. So that also got down to subgrade. And now is being processed and compacted so that it'll be suitable to build up our sections to get to final grade. And our project status reports for the same projects.
So if there aren't any questions, I'll roll into the financial reports. And so our traditional suite is here. So we start out with the consolidated budget status report. Oh, Lorraine, do you have a question for Ellen?
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
You had mentioned during talking to Sally that you had given the board the prioritization weights. Have we gotten that information from you?
I believe so. I think it came, but it was quite a while ago. It was back in either May or June.
Okay. I don't,
But if not, they're all posted on our prioritization webpage.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so we start out with our consolidated budget status reports, which provides financial information for the history of the program, and then drills down in the lime green version, really reporting, Sally, as you mentioned, specifically on the 2016 facility master plan projects. So if you wanted to see a little bit more detail for those sites, it is listed here. Our report 13 is here, and we'll talk a little bit later about the status of some of our state facility grant audits. We have an update on that that's upcoming a little bit later. Our burn rate for the month of September was just shy of $1 million. And we have our spending by site summary. And then if you take a look at the AP checklist, which identifies all of the expenditures for September, you can see that it really kind of carries and follows the projects that we received updates on because they are in design. Lower expenditures on the projects, which will really increase once we get to construction. And so we have a couple of special reports this month that we wanted to bring forward to give you some additional updates. One of them is, as many of you know, we have our bond program management plan, which was adopted by the board in June. And really one of the commitments of the bond program management plan was that it was really going to be maintained such that it was up to date and reflected the most current information. We have done in-house training with all of our staff and project managers on the bond program management plan. And so we wanted to bring forward to you today some of the updates which are available on the bond program management plan website. There's a couple of things that we've done since it was adopted because it is probably most convenient to use in its electronic form. We've added the website where it's available to the document itself because it's a lot easier to click along in the document in its electronic form. We have updated a reference in the document as we use it each and every day and doing our work from time to time. There are things that we find to be updated. So we've made an appendix reference. We've updated our org chart to reflect some of the changes since June. Every fiscal year, we do a new proposal approval checklist form, which is probably the most commonly used form in our program, which documents all of the approvals for any proposed expenditure. So at the beginning of every fiscal year, so that would have been July for us, we publish a new form for the fiscal year that then extends out 5 additional fiscal years. And so we have the new version of our form, which we've shared with our team and is now incorporated into the document. We've added some instructions for the processing of a negative change order within our financial system. We have added some invoice rejection correspondence that we're using. And then one of the actions taken by the board, which we thought was really important to incorporate into the bond program management plan, was that at the board meeting in August, the facilities committee was dissolved. A number of the board committees were, it wasn't just the facilities committee. And so Throughout the bond program management plan, it acknowledges the existence of the facilities committee and things that go to the facilities committee, as it also references the CBOC committee and the things that come before this committee. And so on the approvals page, which is at the very beginning of the document, we have taken the excerpt of that dissolution such that when there's a reference to the facilities committee throughout the narrative of the document, that has remained, but the dissolution of the committee has now been referenced in the document. One of the big commitments that we have is that we'll be producing an annual update every year. And so we'll see where we are when we get to our annual update next summer. But where it stands, we've just made that acknowledgement of the board's action such that if someone's looking at the PMP and they have a question, hey, they mentioned the facilities committee, I don't see that it's met, they're able to make that connection to the board's action. And then because we've updated a reference, we've also updated our audit guide. And so as it currently stands, the bond program management plan is completely up to date as of September 30th. We have issued the update in the Friday memo and really brought it before you today so that we can continue to share with you really our use and continued to commitment to that being the most up-to-date document. And I'm getting ahead, but I'll share a little bit more when we talk about some audit updates. We've got a lot more eyes on our program management plan, which has also been great to kind of get feedback. So if there are no questions on that update, at our last meeting, there was kind of a great question about, hey, what's going on with all the audits? And so we thought this is a really great chance to just share with you kind of what's going on behind the scenes in our day-to-day work. So as many of you know, we have really aggressively applied for and gone after state dollars. Our ability through the bond program and really the generosity and faith of our voters, we've had local bond dollars and we've built a lot of projects. And so every time there's an opportunity to lobby additional state dollars using our local dollars as the match, we've really tried to do that. And so the Office of Public School Construction traditionally has been the auditor for school facility program grants. And so we would work directly with that agency. So now there is a requirement where the audits for school facility program funds goes third party. And so there's a number of historical dollars that we've received that we've recently needed to complete audit for. I got the draft audits today and there's a giant smile on my face, so you can guess what that means. All wonderful news. So we have officially completed, well, we are in the process of completing our first 3 SFP external third-party audits. And that was for Perry's, Gompers, and Coronado, all funds that we've already received. And so we needed to complete that here in October. We have the drafts and we'll be producing a Friday memo updating that. I'm really excited about that. We're also working on an audit for Helms, which is due in December. And so we've provided all of the documents to the auditor, Christy White. And so we're waiting for the expenditure sample to come back, and then we'll provide all of the invoicing accordingly so that they can complete their review. Couple of other audits that are also ongoing at this time. You may recall we had our 2016 forensic accounting investigation, and then subsequent to that, there was the approval for the third-party independent verification of implementation. And so there was the phase 1 that was completed for recommendations as of June 30 of 2017. Well, we also have a phase 1.5, which is being underdone by ID Bailey, and we anticipate having completed by the end of this calendar year. And then we have phase 2.0, which is being completed by Moss Adams. And so we are actively engaged with both auditors and working through that verification process now. And so we hope to have an update on 3 more audits that'll be coming just right around the corner as we conclude the calendar year. And I believe that concludes staff reports for this evening.
Any questions? Okay, well, let's move on. The next item on the attachments was the consent agenda, which is approved by unanimous consent. So Lorraine, annual report update.
Yes, good evening. I apologize for getting in late. I had on my calendar, we were going to meet tomorrow night because of the holiday, but anyway. The annual report update, you should have gotten the links to the report in your email. We have the report, a draft of the report I'm talking about, on the website for the public to look at. What happened was we were running late on getting the draft finished, and it was getting time for the agenda packet to be collated. And we were afraid of holding up the agenda packet, so we had the staff collate the agenda packet while we were finishing the draft. Normally, the draft would be in the agenda packet. So what we decided to do after we finished the draft, we gave it to the staff so that they could put both of the documents up on the website within the 72-hour time frame that the Brown Act requires. So the first chapter in the draft, the executive summary, has not been done. That we have to do yet, but everything else, we would appreciate it if you take a look at it. And we're going to ask certain people if they would check over some things. For instance, I'm going to ask Ellen if she'll just look at my chapter on the facilities master plan, just for accuracy, not for conclusions or anything. John wants to ask Melissa if she'll look over his bond fund one. We'll send emails out to you people. We would appreciate it if you have time to look it over. Also, the public can look over the draft, and we're hoping that Anton, who has volunteered before, will look over the audit chapter, and maybe Tom would look over chapter 5. We appreciate any help we can get on it. So once we get the comments, you can't edit, you can only comment, and you comment by sending an email to me. You can't get in and write comments on the document at all. So send me an email with your suggestions by the 25th if you can. Then John and I will get together. We'll look at the suggestions, change the draft if necessary, and we hope to get the report approved at the November meeting. Any questions? Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I didn't get my hand raised fast enough.
That's okay.
Lorraine, I just want to double check. What date did you say to get the comments in?
The 25th
Of,
October.
okay, is that a Friday?
I've got my calendar here.
Looks like it's a Monday.
That's a Monday.
Okay,
So it must be 2 weeks from today, huh?
yes,
That's correct.
So everybody has 2 weeks to make the comments.
right.
Got it.
Any other questions? Oh, and Melissa or Maisha has volunteered to help John and I, once we get the comments in, to help us just format the whole thing, get rid of empty pages and things like that. So we appreciate her her agreeing, she didn't volunteer, but to agree to do that with us. Volunteer with a little twist.
Okay, Lorraine, okay, if there aren't any more, is there any more on the report? Lorraine, do you want to give us, if there is an update on the conference, which?
There's no update. We haven't received the link yet. You'll be getting the link is the next thing you'll be getting. It's going to be October 16th. Tomorrow we're doing a run through the people in the panels. And it'll start 8:30 where you register, and it'll be done by noon. So we're excited about it. It's a nice overview of the whole program, and we're excited about our first conference. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
That's Melissa, we had a discussion last time of the new or modification of the Cboc member application, and there was some discussion, and you want to give us an update on that?
Absolutely. So really appreciated all of the comments that we got just a couple weeks ago. And so we did go in and make those changes. And so I kind of summarized some of the recommendations here. So one of them was to add the Cboc chair contact information. And so at the very beginning of the application, I did add in, we originally had, if you want to learn more about the Cboc's important work, please join us at a meeting or check out the website. I've added, if you'd like to connect with the Cboc chair, and included John's information. I've also included information to contact staff. And so that's at the very, very beginning of the application. And I think, you know, if somebody kind of wants some information before they hit the submit button, that gives them kind of some of those key direct contacts. And so that change has been made. Another recommendation was to make sure that we had the disclaimer that follows the statute for elected officials. And so you can see that's been made, that's here. Another comment was really about the value of the resume. And so we did add the ability to upload a resume. We did make it optional, so it's not mandatory in the submittal of the application, but we did provide the space and the place for them to add that so that that would be available. This is currently available on the district website and the Cboc website. I know that there was a concern that there was an error message that came up. So I followed up with Mr. Panis and asked for the error because I was unable to replicate the error. That doesn't mean that there isn't an error. It's just that I haven't been able to replicate it. And so I did follow up and ask for a little bit more information. So hopefully that error message is not happening anymore, but I will bring a firm confirmation to the next meeting. And so those are really the changes. The other recommendation that was made was to really look at the back end of our platform to see where are we getting our hits, right? Where are the clicks? And so as a novice, I was able to go in and see that I can confirm the number of hits for the page, but not for the specific item. And so we are going to continue to work with our communications department. I'm sure that there's a way, I just haven't been able to confirm that yet. And I think that's exactly what you were looking for, not just how many times somebody went to the general page. And so more to come on that. That concludes kind of the updates since our last meeting. Mr. Gosney?
Why did we make the resume optional instead of make it a mandatory part of the application?
Because we wanted to encourage people to apply. And so what is required in the application is basically a personal statement of the qualifications and experience that you have and why you want to join the Cboc. but the requirement to provide a resume was, originally it wasn't included. We've put it back on as optional, because I think part of the function of the resume is to see kind of the requisite experience and expertise, which is something that can be done in the personal statement.
But not required to be in the personal statement.
That's correct.
So there's no requirement to actually show qualifications at all.
I think that's part of the interview process, Don, when we get there. You know, they have the option to submit a resume, but these candidates will be interviewed as well, so.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. I thought that the application went straight to the board. The board will be interviewing them?
It's currently within the guidelines.
I'm sorry, I've lost. Where are the guidelines?
Well, Melissa, my understanding is, so they'll send in the application and the staff will look at it. And I'm assuming that the chairperson of the CBOC would look at it. And I think at that time, and you would, if you feel a resume or some more background is necessary, you'd ask the person for it. Correct?
Absolutely. So historically, there was an interview at the facilities committee, and by board action in August, the facilities committee was dissolved. And so more to come, but I do think that, you know, that's essentially where it stands at this time. But absolutely, what we want to do is make sure that everybody feels, anyone that's interested in applying for the CBOC has the opportunity to. And I think we have found that everybody's brought kind of a diverse perspective, which has improved all of the work that we've done. And so at this time, it's optional.
Well, I agree with that, because I think as the point you're making is that it's on an initial application for something like this, it can be intimidating to ask people for a resume.
Mhm.
And the statement of interest gives you the starting point. And then when their application is screened, you just go and ask for a little bit more background if you need it, if you feel you need it. Lorraine.
Yes. Melissa, last time we had mentioned about getting the outreach to the community. Are you planning to work with your community outreach director to try to get the announcement out if we need openings on the committee?
Absolutely. And some great recommendations have come to the committee. I think part of what we wanted to do was get the application settled. But absolutely.
Yeah.
We're working on our communication plan in a lot of different areas, and this is definitely one of them.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Sally?
I just want to kind of follow up on what Dawn was asking, because the thing that stood out to me was the question about qualifications, or maybe qualifications wouldn't be the right word, but it would be more a skill set that might be helpful in a bond oversight committee. So for example, we do a lot of looking at audits and things of that sort. So if somebody comes to the committee with some skills that enable them to assess and evaluate audits, that would be useful information in a application policy or application context. And so I think Dawn asked the question about qualifications or something like that. And so is there any place where any skill sets or qualifications are described or requested?
So there is a personal statement question,
Mhm.
and that's essentially what it asks.
Mhm.
And so what is and maybe if you guys would like, I could just bring it up. Shall we
Go
give
ahead,
that a try?
go ahead.
Can you guys see that okay? Did I share my screen correctly? Did it pop up?
Yeah.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, terrific. And so as we scroll down, so here, please provide a personal statement explaining why you want to serve on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and what special areas of expertise or experience that you think would be helpful to the committee. And that is a required question, right? Because that's one of the questions that is asked. On a personal note, I'll tell you, I haven't worked on my resume in a long time because I've been here at the district working with all of you. And so in my personal capacity, if I wanted to volunteer and I was interested, I could, being kind of a perfectionist, fill out an application and submit. But if you wanted my resume, I'd have to do some work on it. We think it's important that we know that we need applicants. And so we're just hoping that maybe this encourages some additional people to apply and removes one of what might be perceived as a barrier for some to bring some diversity to the committee. So it's there. We've added it as optional, but just not required.
Anton? I see Anton's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would support keeping the requirement for a resume. In the past, I've worked with a number of CBOC members over the years. I would say a good number of those people got on the CBOC because they were interested in getting their school reconstructed. That was their motivation. They had absolutely no motivation or interest or skill in overseeing bonds. But all they wanted to do is get their project done, and that was their interest. I think getting a statement of why you want to get on does not tell me what skills would be helpful for the school district and the CBOC to oversee a multi-million-dollar construction program. I see this as an effort maybe to have a CBOC who does not have those skills, who does not have the ability to effectively oversee a bond program of this magnitude. So I think having a resume is a pretty minimal threshold to see in screening applicants. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other,
Jason's hand just went up.
oh, Jason.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with Anton and not, I see what, I could see both sides here. I could see that maybe you're trying to open it up to more people and generating interest in the community for more people to, sorry if you can hear my grandchildren in the background, but I get it. You want to generate more interest in the community. You want more people to participate in their bond oversight, right? It's their money. We have 6 people, and how many slots are there total that could be filled potentially? About
17.
17, right? Okay. I understand the need to generate more interest and to make it easier and less intimidating for people that may want to step up. But that being said, I think Anton has a point that if what you're trying to do is to get the skills necessary to oversee $1 billion and how it's spent, that's pretty critical as well. And I'll be the first to say that I'm a little bit in over my head being on this, and I have a little bit of experience in this stuff, not a whole lot, but a little bit, and I feel a little over my head sometimes. I'll conclude with that.
Okay, Maisha.
Good evening. I just want to weigh in a bit. I agree with what Melissa's saying. I think that the resume is a barrier for some people. My resume is had not been updated either because I have a job. And for some people who may not have a job or may not understand how to put their skills on paper, I think having a resume is a deterrent. So I'm okay with having the resume as optional. You know, my skill base as an attorney doesn't necessarily mean that I have skills to oversee the bond project either. However, I think with a personal statement, people can express why they want to be a part of the committee, and they can jump on the committee and they can learn, and then they can update their resume. But I feel like having a resume as optional is a good option right now, because we do want to get more people and we don't want to have unnecessary barriers.
Okay. I don't see any more comments. With that, thanks, Melissa.
I have one more. Sorry,
Oh,
again,
sorry.
slow in putting up my hand. Sorry. I think those are really, really good comments. And my only raising that issue is more along the lines of, in the application process, is there anywhere where we suggest certain skill sets would be helpful, and give people an opportunity in their questions and answers, not the resume necessarily, but just in the question and answers, to highlight what they've done that helps them fill some of those needs.
Okay, thank you, Sally. And I think that's it. Okay, the next item is an update on we discussed it quite a bit last time, the meeting of the ad hoc committee of the CBOC and staff on revising the CBOC policy. Hopefully we're going to meet this week. Melissa may have an update for us on that, but you know, we're looking forward to it. Speaking for Sally, and myself, we're looking forward to this meeting. Do you have anything further, Melissa?
No, I think just the same. The last item was great. I have very much enjoyed this committee because I do feel like there's a diversity of opinions and comments. And I think it's improved what we've done. And it's a sign of the progress that we've made over the years. And so we also really look forward to the meeting. What I would share is that part of what we have done in anticipation of our first meeting is pulled historical records, recommendations from the grand jury, the Little Hoover Commission, the forensic accounting investigation, really pulled those documents because what we know is that there is a lot of time and effort and thought that has gone into improving the policy over the years. And so as we sit down and begin to meet, those documents are at the forefront, and those recommendations have been pulled together and are really kind of key to looking forward, is not forgetting where we've been and how we've gotten to where we are. And so with that, we have had the meeting scheduled twice. There have been a series of conflicts, which I am so sorry about. We do really hope to reschedule the meeting for this week, and if not, definitely next week.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll add to the previous discussion, that there very well may be a few tweaks of the application that will come out of the work of on the revision to the policy as well. So Any further discussion? I don't see anybody's hand up. Okay, with that, we'll move on. So the last meeting, we had a discussion of several sets of minutes that have been hanging out there. And the first item was the February CBOC meeting minutes. Those were were in the agenda packet, pretty much as we discussed last time. And I'd like a motion to approve those minutes from February of this year.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Jason, motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. So any further discussion?
Yeah.
If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So it was unanimous.
You need a roll call vote.
Oh, roll call vote. Okay. Maisha Cole,
Aye.
Sally DeWitt,
Aye.
Jason Lindsay,
Aye.
Lorraine Humes,
Aye.
John Anderson, aye. So motion passes 5-0
With one person missing.
with one missing, yes.
Why did we need a roll call vote? I'm just asking process.
Because the Brown Act requires that you list by name how each member voted.
For that particular issue or for
All
all?
issues.
All issues. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the second item was, we had two sets of minutes from the joint meeting. One was the minutes prepared by staff, and they are also the minutes of the meeting by the district. And the other one was prepared by Mr. Gosney, and the motion is to approve both sets of minutes. The one being the board's minutes, the other one having more detail relative to some of the items on the agenda, with the overall understanding that the formal record of all of these minutes is the electronic audio video. So with that, do I have a motion to approve these?
I so move.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All right, with that, we have any discussion?
There is public comment.
And I'm looking for the members first. All right, Mr. Gosney.
Thank you. Although much of what's in my comments were emailed to the CBOC last night, some of you may not have had a chance to review them. I'm repeating them here, not only for the benefit of everyone here, but also for the record. Before us tonight, we have two sets of minutes from the same meeting. The first was drafted by district staff. When the minutes were brought before the CBOC for consideration, the CBOC rejected them because they were incomplete. During that meeting, there were numerous questions posed by CBOCers and board members, which were included in the minutes. What was missing from those minutes were the responses to those questions. The CBOC wanted those responses to be included. At that time, the CBOC secretary, John Anderson, had resigned his post. Having no secretary, as the CBOC chair, I accepted the responsibility to review the video and redraft the minutes so they included the responses. I reviewed the video numerous times to ensure the accuracy of the revised draft minutes. Since they were first sent to the CBOC for consideration more than 4 months back, there has been some pushback on whether the CBOC should even be allowed to consider these minutes. I'm flummoxed to understand the rationale. At the last CBOC meeting, CBOC Chair Anderson said that it is common for the audio video of a meeting to be the official record of the meeting, as opposed to the written minutes. It was suggested that rather than include the additional information, that the CBOC should accept staff's truncated version and allow interested readers to review the video if they wanted to know what the responses were. Tonight, you're being asked to accept the district staff's version as well as my version as the official minutes of the meeting. Since the CBOC was created 20 years ago, there has never been 2 sets of official minutes. From my perspective, this does not make sense. There was a time when the CBOC allowed staff to run the oversight of the bond program. Staff created the agendas and drafted the minutes, as they largely do now. In recent years, though, CBOC has asserted their independence and took control of their agendas as well as their minutes. What staff thinks may be important when they draft the minutes may not be what the CBOC thinks is important. In my opinion, the questions that were asked were important. The questions that were asked were important, but of equal importance were the responses to those questions. As for the idea that a reader should be required to go through 2 to 3 hours of a video to learn what the response was, would any of us want to go to those links instead of simply reading the lines directly beneath the questions in the minutes? Shouldn't the minutes be a standalone document, or should readers be required to visit multiple websites to learn what happened at the meeting? If the district and the CBOC wants to promote transparency, is this the way to accomplish this? Again, I don't understand why there is so much pushback to accepting the fuller, more complete minutes as the official minutes of the meeting. I've heard nothing to suggest that what I added to the minutes is incorrect. It seems that the issue is either whether the CBOC should draft their own minutes, or even whether a set of minutes that I helped draft should be considered. What kind of message would this send to staff if the CBOC votes that the truncated and less accurate minutes drafted by staff were good enough? My recommendation is that the CBOC have only 1 set of official minutes, and those minutes should be the set that is more complete and standalone. Thank you.
Mr. Younger,
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. It's my view that the board drafted minutes have already been approved by the board. I don't think there's any option for the CBOC to approve them or not approve them. They've already been approved. In my memory, the CBOC has never approved board written minutes because they have no ability or authority to approve or not approve them. Historically, on joint meetings, oftentimes the CBOC did not have CBOC prepared minutes. So my sense is that the options are you have CBOC prepared minutes or no CBOC prepared minutes, but I don't think you have any option of approving the board minutes because they've already been approved by the board, and those are their minutes. I support Don's thought that having CBOC prepared minutes is appropriate, but if the CBOC doesn't want to do that, then I think you just don't have any minutes, CBOC minutes for joint meetings. Thank you.
any further comments? Sally? Sally?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this leaves me in something of a quandary because I'm a strong supporter of, through actions as much as words, reinforcing the independence of the Bond Oversight Committee, the CBOC. Well, what does independence mean? That it begs that question over and over again, and sometimes we have to take a long, hard look at that. So I think what is being said here is that the Bond Oversight Committee needs to take action to reinforce its own independent authority over its minutes. If we don't continue to do that, then we will lose that aspect of our meetings. the quandary is that we're such a small group here that the staff is helping the Bond Oversight Committee by preparing these minutes. So if we don't approve them, we're to some degree being disrespectful to people that are helping us. So it's a case of, do we reinforce our sense of independence so that we have authority over our minutes, or do we express some sort of gratitude for helping in a situation like this where we have so few members? And I think we lost our secretary, our official secretary. So, you know, Dawn stepped in as a volunteer and helped with these minutes too. So I'm just thinking out loud, you know, how do we do this and what weighs out in favor? And I think I'd have to come down on, personally, just come down on the side of independence, reinforcing that. And Anton makes a good point. These have already been approved by the board, so it doesn't really matter what our vote is. To a degree, I'm thinking out loud here, but we have to stand on our independence, or we will lose it entirely. That's not a good thing for a, quote, independent Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. I guess that's all I can say on it.
Listen,
Yes, thank you. So forgive me for my ignorance. I was not at the April 1st meeting, I don't believe, and cannot recall what the reason was for. I think I was before I was actually seated, but my first question is, what was the purpose of the joint meeting? Can anybody answer that briefly?
Yeah, we have a meeting twice a year with the Board of Education. And at one of the meetings like this one, we had the performance evaluation audits presented to both groups at one time. It's sort of like to see, what are you doing, so we can get on the same page.
Gotcha.
well,
Okay.
and
Go ahead.
that particular meeting was an overview. There really was no action that was taken by other group.
Okay.
Yeah.
So forgive me for being new here and not knowing the total history of these joint meetings, but typically over the years, who is charged with taking the minutes? Has there traditionally only been one set of minutes, and whose duty is that traditionally to take the minutes of the joint meetings?
Lorraine?
Well, from what I remember is that we have one set of minutes, and I believe the CBOC did it. But see, this was unusual. This was unusual in that it was more or less seemed to be the board's meeting, and then they would let us talk. It wasn't really a joint meeting as we've had in the past. How about if we amend the recommendation or the motion that we approve the CBOC minutes, but acknowledge that there is a second set by the WCCUSD for that meeting?
My last question, if I may, and then I'll be finished, is if we choose not to approve the minutes, would we be in some fashion found derelict of our duties?
I don't believe so. Don?
Thank you. A couple of issues here. First, the board policy requires that there be 2 joint meetings per year. One in the first quarter, one in the second quarter, or the third quarter. The third quarter passed without the board scheduling a joint meeting. So that ship has sailed. Now, the joint meeting is actually two meetings at once. It is a board meeting and it is a CBOC meeting. Now, the minutes that were presented by the board secretary was for the board meeting. Okay, and we were supposed to have our own set of minutes for the CBOC meeting. If you decide not to accept the CBOC meetings minutes tonight, then you will not have any minutes for the CBOC part of the joint meeting. They won't exist. It doesn't mean that the board won't still have their meetings, but again, as I pointed out, what the board is looking for, what the staff is looking for is not always the same as what we're looking for. And in particular, this time around, the CBOC said that they wanted, in the minutes, they wanted the responses to the questions that were asked by CBOC members and by board members. Those were not included in the board minutes at all. So if you accept only theirs, you will not have any responses to those questions. That will be the history of the CBOC for that when it came to how we dealt with the audits.
So the version that you rewrote or that you went through and wrote has the answers to those specific questions. And as you already stated, that it's typical in this joint meeting, or especially in this particular joint meeting anyway, that there was actually two separate meetings happening in one setting.
As
Lack of a better way of putting it.
As a chair for several years, typically the board president and the CBOC chair would work together to conduct a joint meeting. We would share responsibilities. That did not happen at this meeting. The board president chose to do everything and did not allow the CBOC to do anything. We're lucky that we were able to be there as guests. That's an editorial comment here, but I can do that now as a private citizen. That
may be, but what I'm trying to ascertain here is that if there's typically two sets, if they're in these joint meetings, if there's typically two meetings in one held on the same night in the same venue, but two separate meetings, and in the CBOC's version of their minutes, the questions posed, the problem questions that the board did not answer, but there are answers to those questions in the CBOC version, then is there any harm in accepting two different sets of minutes for the meeting? They have their version of their discussion in the meeting, and the CBOC has their meeting, which you've already stated is traditionally two separate meetings in this same night.
If I can,
Unless I'm misunderstanding something.
if I can, we've never had two sets of minutes. The board minutes are for the board meeting, and they are included as part of their packet. Typically, we do not include the board minutes as part of our packet as a historical record of the CBOC part of the meeting. Now, in this particular case, we used their minutes as a foundation, and all that we really did was to expand on the responses. So what is included in the board minutes is already included in the minutes that I drafted.
Okay.
Nothing was removed. They're
Okay.
still there. So you would have a duplication of their minutes if you accepted both.
Is there any harm in that?
Well, what happens if somebody reads their sets of minutes and thinks, well, that's all there is?
Couldn't they be contained in the same spot?
They're already in the same spot. They said their minutes are included in our minutes already.
Okay, and in our minutes, there's answers to the questions, which is the real root of the problem, right? Here?
Yes.
That's the whole root of the whole problem, and there are answers to those questions?
Yes, there are.
So if they looked at that version, they would see the questions, they would see the answers,
Yes.
then what's the problem? I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding the problem. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm dense, I don't know, but I don't understand what the problem is.
The other way to say it, Jason, the way I look at it is
Is everybody,
The
is it just a
board-
problem with somebody we're feeling disrespected? Is that the real problem?
Yeah, the board has a set of meetings that are pretty much just the outline. And then we have a set of meetings that has our part to it. But the real set is that transcript, that audio set. Now, the actual solution would be to have a full transcript of that meeting is whenever you have that, and for our meetings, quite frankly, to have a full transcript of what's discussed during the meeting. But that's not done. That's expensive. You either have to have somebody do that, or you have to, there's software that does it that costs about 10, 15, 20 grand. But, and so what we have here is we have the board has its set. We have our set with the points that we felt were important. And then you have the third set, which is the actual audio visual record that has everything in it. So I guess I'm kind of saying the same thing. They're really, both sets have their parts, but the full set is not recorded. It's recorded as an audio visual record.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Anton?
Just to go back on the joint meetings in answer to prior question, the board policy 7214.2 as Don pointed out, requires joint meetings in the first and third quarters. The district has not had any joint meeting this third quarter. As far as I know, this is the first time that they've not honored their own policy. I would note the staff has recommended in their revision of the board policy that there be no further joint meetings at all, because the board is not interested in having any more joint meetings with the CBOC. And I think that's part of their plan to mute the CBOC as an independent body. Why do we need to have joint meetings with the CBOC? In regards to having minutes, I think every CBOC meeting should have minutes of their meeting. Further, I do not think the CBOC has any authority to approve or not approve board minutes. So to have in your minutes that you approve, supposing you don't approve the board minutes, what does that mean? The CBOC has no authority over the board minutes. So either you have your own minutes or no minutes, but I don't think you get to approve the board minutes. You might not like them, you might object to them, and you could go to the board meeting. You know, when the board approves the minutes, it's open public comment and people can make recommendations for amendments to the minutes, and that is done on a routine basis. But that's done at the board meeting, not at a CBOC meeting. So again, I think the options are approve. And by the way, I was the secretary for the CBOC for a number of years, and I always approved or always prepared the joint meeting minutes. That's who prepared them. So it seems to me your options are to approve the minutes that Don prepared with the CBOC meetings, or don't take any action on this item.
Lorraine?
Yes, I would just, like I said before, why don't we approve the CBOC or the CBOC minutes and just acknowledge for historical purposes, or so if someone's reading it, they know there's a second set that was approved and written by the board, just so they know there are two sets of minutes here. They may be the same, but one is the board's official and we approve our official. How about that?
Is that the current motion?
Yeah, do you
Yeah.
want to,
But I can change it to that.
do you want to change on, Sally, you have a comment before Lorraine moves forward?
Well, I want to support that in part, at least. And say that, yes, I think it makes every bit of sense to have a motion that approves unequivocally the CBOC set of minutes for the joint meeting. And whether or not we approve the WCCUSD minutes, the board minutes, that's a separate question. which we could consider at some point in time, either tonight or some other night. But I think we should approve for sure the CBOC set of minutes and leave the others on the table and for further discussion another time. That seems simple.
Lorraine, do you want to reiterate your recommended motion?
Well, what problem do you have with just acknowledging that they exist?
I'm not quite sure how you'd word that. I mean, the public already knows that they exist because they are part of a public record and
Well, not necessarily if they're looking at our website.
So if I could jump in just really quickly, depending on the action of the CBOC, then staff would post the approved minutes to the CBOC website. And so if, as Lorraine has proposed, the CBOC minutes were approved and the board minutes were acknowledged, then we would do a combined file and post that on the CBOC website. If you just approve the CBOC minutes for the joint meeting, then we would just post those. And so typically what happens is once the minutes are approved by the CBOC, we then post them on the CBOC website. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I did also just want to share, because I think Anton makes a really good point. When staff prepares the minutes, they're simply a draft. And so when they come before the committee, changes to the language, changes to the minutes, we're going to post what the CBOC approves. And so we really do just mean to do that as a support. And so I want to make sure that everybody knows that they always have the opportunity to say, we're requesting the following changes to the minutes, which is similar to what you would see happen at the board meeting. The same thing will always exist here as well. I just think that's an important and a great point that he made. And so ultimately, whatever you approve tonight, and if you approve tonight, then we will do the posting. But until the CBOC approves, we don't post the minutes to the website, if that helps.
Okay.
Can I ask a point of clarification, Melissa, what you just said? I think the problem is the word here, approves. So that connotes something positive, like, yeah, that's correct, or something like that, correctness, accuracy. And what about just the CBOC receiving the board approved minutes, their own board approved minutes? Would you put it on the website then if tonight the CBOC said, well, yeah, we received it, we understand that it's here? Would you put it on the website? So
we would want to do really the will of the CBOC. So to me, I think that's the question that's before you, is what is the record that the CBOC wants to have on the website as the minutes for the meeting? And so is it just the CBOC minutes? Is it the CBOC meeting minutes with the board meeting minutes together? And so I agree that receives probably a better word, right? Something that we use with audit. But ultimately what we want to do is what you want, right? What the CBOC approves tonight. And so unfortunately, I'd kind of volley the question back to the CBOC as a whole and say, we really just want to do what the body approves as the action for us to do for the minutes. Well, I propose that the motion be, and Lorraine, maybe just consider this, it's just a suggestion here, a motion to receive it says WCCUSD, so I'm going to say board approved minutes and approve the CBOC set of minutes.
Yeah, I don't care if you use receive or acknowledge, doesn't matter to me. I would accept that.
Okay.
Okay, Sally, do you want to make that amended motion?
Me? John, did you just say me?
Yeah, do you want to make that amended motion?
Okay. So I make a motion to receive WCCUSD minutes from the April 1st, 2021 joint board and CBOC minutes and approve the CBOC set of minutes for the April 1st, 2021 joint board and CBOC meeting. I had to put my glasses on to see it. Yes, that's true.
Do I have a second?
Oh, well, I made the first motion, so I can't second this, can I? Don?
You didn't.
Hello?
So John is your chairman.
Well, I'm asking Don as a point of order.
Actually, you made a second motion.
Okay,
The original motion was to accept both of them.
yes.
And actually, you're supposed to be having substitute motions.
We're doing the best we can here, Don.
I understand, but I don't want to.
So would you suggest voting down the original motion?
No, I would
And-
just suggest that Sally has a substitute motion for your substitute motion.
Okay,
And you're seconding her substitute motion.
sure, sounds good to me.
Yippee, we
I
did it.
had a question for Melissa on point of order, kind of clarification, if John will allow it.
Yeah, we haven't, this is a discussion period right now
Thank you.
after the first motion.
So, yeah, Melissa, it sounded like you were talking about combining the two sets of minutes into one set to post on the website. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, so my understanding was if the motion was to approve the CBOC minutes and to receive the board minutes, then I would take the two sets of minutes, put them in one document, still separate, but together in one document, and I would post that to the website.
Okay, my question for you is just if I were a casual member of the community and pulled that combined document up and I read the board minutes, and then I saw that there were the CBOC minutes and the text was virtually identical, why would I continue to read the CBOC minutes? I would think that they're just a repeat. It wouldn't be until I got to page 5 or 6 of the CBOC minutes to see that there was actually additional text in there as responses to the questions that were being asked. So, I mean, to me, it sounds, if you combine them like that it's shoving our minutes, the CBOC minutes, under the carpet so that nobody would really be looking at them.
So because the CBOC minutes were going to be approved and the board minutes were going to be received, it was going to have the CBOC minutes, and then behind it was going to be the board minutes. And so if a reader picked up the minutes from the meeting and read it from page 1 to the end, they would read the CBOC meeting minutes first.
And lastly, and I promise I will try to shut up after this, in my 20 some odd years with the CBOC, we have never received a set of board minutes. Because they are board minutes, not CBOC minutes. And I'm lowering my hand, dropping the mic.
All right. With that, I don't see any other hands up out there. I'll call for call a roll.
Can just, John, sorry, for a point of note-taking help, can you just restate which motion people are voting on so that the person taking the minutes knows exactly what we're doing?
Sally, can you repeat what you said earlier?
Okay, so we're voting on the substitute motion to receive the WCCUSD board approved minutes and approve the CBOC minutes for the April 1st, 2021 Joint Board and CBOC meeting, period.
Got it, Ellen?
Well, I was doing it for Sylvia's behalf, but I'm pretty sure she thanks you.
It's recorded.
It's recorded anyway.
It's recorded, but the problem is like we had a lot of different versions, and I just want to make sure right previous to the vote we had the final wording.
Such a good
So
idea.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Excellent, Ellen.
Right, I'll call the roll. Sally DeWitt,
Yes.
Lorraine Humes,
Yes,
Maisha Cole,
she's going to sleep.
Maisha.
I don't see her around here.
Yeah, she may have left. Jason,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. So we have four yes and 2 absent. Maisha has left. Okay. So the motion carries. All right. It's now 7:35, and with that, our next meeting is November 8th, and at that point, I hope we have our report to a point where we can bring it before the board, the CBOC for approval. And with that, we'll see you then.
John,
Yes.
the other day you had mentioned that you might be a little late for the meeting on November 8th.
Oh, that's changed.
Okay, good.
I had the wrong date.
Okay.
Good. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting by unanimous consent. Thank you.
Yep.
Good night, everybody. Stay well.
Thank you.
Good
You
night.
too. Good night.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.